Awesome. Good afternoon, everyone. Such a pleasure to be here with you in Amsterdam. My name is Paul Mooney, Chief Customer Officer here at Mews. It's my wonderful pleasure to welcome direct all the way from Mexico, Harsha, and Greg from everywhere, right, Greg? Welcome.
In the middle.
You go in the middle?
Yeah, I'll go in the middle.
Awesome. All right, we're nearly there to lunchtime. So, first question, Greg, that video was awesome. Absolutely wonderful, very inspiring. I'd love to hear a little bit more about Saira and what you guys do.
Sure. First of all, thanks for having us here. Hello, everyone out there. So as hopefully the video told you all, we essentially set up pop-up hospitality schools around the world. We partner directly with hotels that essentially work with us to go out into the community, source undiscovered talent that typically would have been overlooked for a job in a luxury lifestyle hotel. We then develop a training curriculum in partnership with that hotel, and then all of our graduates from the end of the program are essentially employed by the hotel at the end. So we exist for those two core purposes, really, to impact and change lives via hospitality training, but obviously very important probably to everyone in the room as well who's feeling the pinch of hiring and recruitment at the moment, really to help operators to find great talent that we know is out there, and then help them retain them over a longer period of time as well.
Awesome, that's fantastic. And Harsha, how did it all start? Where did the idea come from? What was the nucleus?
Thanks, Paul. I think it pretty much started from watching my father, who you'll see on the screen, work very closely with Mother Teresa. My four sisters and I grew up watching him work with her, helping her fund and operate really homes and orphanages all around the world. And as a result, some of us have this very strong philanthropic gene to give back in a way. But I fell in love with luxury hospitality. I started working with resorts and hotels kind of all around the world, but namely with Six Senses in Southeast Asia, and fell in love with the idea of selling ultra high net worth individuals villas, and falling in love with hammocks in the middle of the Maldives and treetop dining pods. But I was strongly looking for a way to connect these two worlds of philanthropy and hospitality. And so I was lucky to get into Cornell's hotel school, and that's where I started writing this business plan on this kind of connection between these two worlds. And it was really when I was doing the externship, they would call it, in Sri Lanka at the Amman, that I'd overheard this interview between the Italian general manager. Often general managers, as I'm sure the audience knows, are coming from overseas in these resort locations. And then the local man from the community who had come to interview for the pool cleaner job. And I knew that both the local man as well as Pietro, the GM, really wanted this to work. And I watched the interview, or overheard the interview, and he was on time, and he was well-dressed, and he had a great smile, and he definitely did not get the job because he didn't have the really basic interview skills or the very minimal knowledge of hospitality or what the Amman was or what hotels are. Probably never walked into a hotel before. But that's when the two worlds were really connected for me, and I saw the need on both sides. So I went back to Cornell, wrote this business plan on Saira Hospitality, and then when we won first place, I took the startup funding to then launch the first pop-up hotel school, which was a quick pilot in downtown LA, and then moving much more to the resort locations. Todos Santos was our first school in Mexico, which is where I am now, where we partnered with what's now Standard Hotels. And then we moved over to the East Cape, partnered with the Four Seasons, Costa Palmas, and then took it kind of all over British Virgin Islands, Namibia, and now in London with Greg.
That's awesome. Fantastic. Yeah. And Greg, it's a lot goes into these schools, right? Yeah. Tell us a little bit about how you create them. Like, how does it come about?
Yeah, the process is it's quite a long and beautiful one. it changes slightly depending on if we're working on in a far-flung destination like Namibia, or we're working in an urban environment like London. But there are kind of 6 key steps along the journey that help us create these amazing schools around the world. And the first one is really finding the partners that we're going to be working with. So yes, we're looking for hotels that are in need of finding that new line level talent, but also I think it mentions in the video, we're really passionate about working with hotels that understand the ethos of investing in people that have never really been invested in before. I think if you speak to 90% of our students globally, if they feel like they've been invested in, I think both financially and emotionally, they would probably definitely say that they haven't been. So we want to work with hotels that see that as paying it back over a long term, investing in an individual before they even know what hospitality is, and then seeing them go through this journey with us and eventually being hired by that operator at the other side. So we find the great hotels that we want to work with, and then we build the content and the curriculum based on those hotels. So the team goes often inside the hotels physically to meet with all of the general managers, the line level staff, asking all the right questions to understand, what are really brand values to you as the front doorman or someone working in the kitchen. Do you feel those values? How can we portray that through the curriculum that we create? Quite a fun thing that we're doing in London later on this year is we're actually having the team go in and do a bit of shadowing and work experience inside the hotels that we work with, so that when we go out and find the students further down the process, they actually know what it's like inside the 4 walls of that hotel, so they can start to find the right students that actually match the job descriptions. I think we all know that job descriptions in hospitality are a little bit naff because words on a page don't really do much. So for us to know what the hotel works like physically and internally, it's much easier for us to find those students in the long term. And then we build our own team based on that. So we've found our hotel partners. We've tweaked the curriculum a little bit to make sure that it's relevant for that market and the partners that we're working with. And then we'll go out and we'll find our own internal teams. And that's always an amazing experience and just lots of fun. So we only work with people who are based in the destination that we're working in. So we don't really have a team of trainers or project managers that we fly around. We prefer to go into that destination and really find the individuals that have lived and breathed hospitality there much more than we have, because we don't have a right to pop up somewhere and act like we can train when we haven't been in that specific area. So when we're finding trainers, we're always looking for people who haven't got teaching degrees or kind of training qualifications. We're looking for people who essentially have just lived hospitality in that area. They've got the anecdotes, they've got what it's like to be there, and that's really important to us. We then go and find the students, which is probably the most rewarding part, would you say?
Yeah, I would say it's the most challenging part.
It's very challenging, and we do that again based on where we're working, but typically it's partnerships. We're very kind of partnership-oriented business, working with other non-profits, working with other charities in the local area who have a pipeline of individuals that need support and need investment, looking for careers in something that's fulfilling. And again, we believe, because we've been in the industry for a long time, that hospitality as an industry is the perfect conduit to help someone grow their self-belief and their confidence, because every day you're coming across nice people, maybe not so nice people sometimes, challenging people, but it really helps reinforce our curriculum, which is about emotional intelligence, leadership, communication skills. Then entering a dynamic workforce like a hospitality, you actually get to use those in real time, and it's bloody scary for the first couple of weeks. I was petrified of my first hospitality job, and that was in like a caravan park in the Lake District in the UK, so not much pressure. So I can already feel what it's like for our students, but we know that the kind of the information that we're passing through to them through our workshop-based curriculum and things like that gives them the confidence to feel like they belong inside these luxury and lifestyle hotels, because a lot of them probably would never set foot inside them before. I know it's nearly lunch. I'm going to try and go a bit quicker because I'm taking it quite slow, as I tend to do. And then once we've found the students, we'll screen them 3 times before they actually are accepted onto the program. We do that as much for our partners as we do for the individuals. We work a lot with refugees. We work a lot with individuals who've had a lived experience of homelessness. To accept someone into a program like ours who's just come off the street wouldn't really be fair to our hotel partners, and it wouldn't be fair to the individual, because without having that without having your pillars aligned, you know, if you don't have a great home life, how are you expected to really come into a training program like ours, which is quite intense, and survive and thrive? So the screening process that we use every time we do a program really helps us understand who's the right fit for that program. And then, yeah, we'll go the actual training.
Yeah, awesome.
The big part.
I mean, I leave aside the you know, the difficult person as you directed towards that to me. But anyway, we move on.
Nothing personal.
But that's a lot of work, right? It's a lot of investment. So, Harsha, how do you measure success?
Well, we have, as you understand, we have kind of two partners, right? We need to measure the success as a nonprofit. We're a registered nonprofit. We need to look at our impact on the students and on the kind of less privileged communities that we're working with, but we also need to measure our impact on the hotels and the partners that are, for the majority, funding our schools. So I guess for this audience, I'll focus more on these stats that you're seeing here, which are focused towards the hotel partners. And out of the 5 that you see, I think the 10% on average turnover year on year is the most interesting for a lot of people. And Greg and I have kind of brainstormed as to why we're hitting this kind of constant 10 to 13% depending on the market. And there's a few reasons for that. I think the main reason is we're finding people who not only want this opportunity but really need this opportunity. They have this vision for themselves. They see hospitality, as you can see, 98% of people are seeing hospitality as a career and not just a means to an end or a summer job or a college job like Greg had. And we're seeing these students kind of come together as this cohort of support and accountability. But I think most importantly, and Greg touched on this earlier, our students are seeing these hotel partners invest in them, often for the first time, and they have this sense of brand loyalty to these hotels and to us as Saira, as intermediaries, who are giving them this very high quality, free of charge education. And that's, I think, one of the reasons that we're seeing this constant low turnover, because they have this vision for success. They have this kind of debt and loyalty towards the brand partners and to us for staying in what's a career and not just a means to an end.
That's awesome. Absolutely fantastic. And I think we've an example. Is it Peter?
Yeah, I was just going to jump in quickly before we see Peter, just to say that we are, you know, we're obviously very target-driven, and we need to have metrics that prove our kind of success and our impact. But there's a lot of intangible kind of measures of success as well. There's one that's probably just best described as the kind of confidence factor, which you see, you know, to find a student before they've considered, you know, Saira, they've considered a role in hospitality, all the way through the journey of the, you know, between 4-week-long school or 10-week-long school, depending where we are. Seeing that personal transformation, which is really hard to put down on paper, to, you know, the person that couldn't look you in the eye when you first met them, to the person that then is asking you questions and is curious about yourself as a person, which is really rare to find actually right at the beginning of the process. So we kind of, every time we do one of these schools, we have so many beautiful examples of individuals who've found themselves. It usually clicks after the emotional intelligence module. We find that's probably when people begin to really kind of flower. You know, in there we're talking about things like triggers, so that people know how to react when they're in an environment that's scary or daunting or intimidating. And yeah, there's multiple examples of people, but there's just one individual who graduated from our London program last June, a chap called Peter, who had a very kind of troubled background with substance abuse, and he was one of those candidates that I think I was on the front line for that school, so I met him at the job centre, and really took some persuading to get off the benefit system and come to school for the 6-week program. And he's now employed at the Pan Pacific, so beautiful 5-star property in the heart of London. And yeah, we'll show a quick video because he's such a character, having never worked in hospitality before.
Being in hospitality is something that I never thought I'd get into, but Saira's shown me there's a part of me that has got a lot of hospitality in me, and I think I've found it, and I'm very, very happy. 6 weeks that I spent at Saira, I spent 3 weeks in classroom, which taught me a hell of a lot. I've never been in hospitality before, so they've taught me a hell of a lot. And then the second 3 weeks, I was doing work experience here at the Pan Pacific. They've sent me all over the different parts of the hotel to experience the whole experience of hospitality. And here I am as a doorman of the Pan Pacific London, and I'm overwhelmed.
That's fantastic. Really, really inspiring. The Pan Pacific is in the centre of London. So you mentioned earlier where the roots of Saira are in the more rural areas. How did that transition come about?
Yeah, it was really interesting, actually. So it was about September 2021, when Greg joined, and we were in London just kind of brainstorming what we were going to do. London, like the rest of the world, had just been hit by the pandemic, but also with Brexit. And so we were in a really kind of challenging place and thinking about how we can pivot. And it was actually a couple of years before the pandemic started that I was talking with Brad Wilson from the Ace Hotel. And we were going to launch a school in the middle of New York City at the Ace for just women, because there was a real lack of chefs. And we thought it would be a fun take on bringing women back into the kitchen, which is, as you know, quite a male-dominated area in hospitality. But then all of a sudden the pandemic hits maybe a couple of months later, and there's too many chefs. And everyone's been furloughed and everyone's lost their jobs. And so that idea was quickly shelved for a while. And then you fast forward another 6 months, Greg and I are in London, and there's still the hotels needing the talent again, but this time no one wants to come back and work. This time everyone's lost faith in their industry and in the employers, and they found other things to do. And so it was a really tricky time because it felt like all the hotels all around the world had all opened at the same time, but they didn't have an opening budget. So we were almost going backwards, but thinking, how can we do this without hotels having the budget to do the schools, is what we've been doing. So we kind of came up with this idea of a collective. We saw in London for the first time the hotels coming together, especially independent hotels, luxury hotels, all coming together. But more than anything, we saw this openness that they had to thinking differently and thinking creatively as to how they're going to find this talent that they really needed, that they started to realize how indispensable entry-level talent is. Yeah. And so, when we saw, for example, brands like Nobu London open to hiring ex-offenders, we realized that this was an opportunity that we didn't have before, because this mind shift has settled in after the pandemic to allow us to work in urban cities like London.
Fantastic, wonderful. And Saira, how is it funded?
So we're typically funded by the beneficiaries of the program, so the hotels that we work with when we're initially finding them at the start of that process that I was talking through earlier on. We will either, like Harsha mentions, work with a collective of hotels. If we're in an urban environment like London, we'll pool together maybe 5 or 10 different hotels that are all looking to hire between 5 and 10 new members of staff, line-level talent. Or if we're working overseas, typically we're working with newly opening properties who will then leverage their pre-opening budgets and things like that. But a big kind of ambition for us in the future is to source funds from external areas, because I think everyone in the audience will attest to the fact that there's been plenty of kind of black swan events recently, which means if we can somehow lower the barrier to entry for hotels financially, it just means that we're able to support them in a way that's much of an easier conversation. So we're doing that a little bit. For example, in London, we're not just working with the owners and the brands anymore. We're actually working with the landowners where the physical real estate is. So it's obviously in their interest for their tenants to be thriving and surviving. So if we can go and kind of draw a little bit of funds from them as well, then it makes a big difference. But really, I think partnerships, we're very, very driven by partnerships at every stage of that process. So working with partnerships to help us find additional funding is really important to us.
Awesome. Well, it sounds like a great time to ask you the question about the partnership you're about to talk to.
Yeah, so we may have seen in the program for the Unfold event that, Saira and Mews met about 6 to 8 months ago, and I think instantly clear that we were quite both quite passionate businesses about kind of disruption and innovation. Obviously, Mews very focused on the kind of technology side, and Saira much more focused on education. We kind of started theorizing pretty quickly about how we could create some partnership models together that would really make a huge impact for Mews customers and beyond. So yeah, really excited to be kind of working with Mews in the future. Essentially, over the next 18 months, we're going to be creating 5 schools together globally in partnership with Mews. They will be open to Mews customers, so essentially the beneficiaries of each of these programs will be you guys, whoever's a Mews customer in the audience. And yeah, we'll be working in 5 different locations, starting with Amsterdam and London, very excitingly. And that's kind of the first parts of the partnership, which really is utilizing Saira's kind of historic background of these schools to help Mews customers. And then the second part is a really exciting one for us. We have typically not a very technology-focused business.
Thanks,
We use the odd Google slide and things like that. But as we met with the Mews guys and we met with Richard, we kind of realized that actually what we do can really benefit from what you guys do, which is obviously being at the cutting edge of technology. So again, within this next kind of 18-month time frame, we're looking at a way that we can take Saira's curriculum and the key parts of that curriculum, bring them online through the Mews University platform to essentially offer not just Mews customers, but the wider kind of hospitality industry access to online kind of the life skills sessions that we run in the Saira program. Hugely exciting for us because we believe that that's a fantastic way to retain your team if you're giving them access to this quite cutting edge piece of technology. So yeah, some big things in the pipeline, and like we say, we're very partnership driven, so it's exciting to be here today and kind of announce that to you all. And yeah, we're very thankful for the opportunity to do so.
No, thank you both. It's hugely exciting for me, and what Saira does and what Mews do are 2 different things. When they come together, I think there's going to be some magic happening. So I want to thank you both for joining us today, and thank you all for being here also. I'm hugely excited about this partnership. Here's to the future, guys. Thanks a million.
Thank you.
So, always an ask when I'm on the stage. How do you get involved, right? So there's 2 components for which Greg mentioned, the schools, for which we'll be scheduling over the next few weeks. If you want to take part or you're interested in learning more about that specific element of our partnership, please take a scan of the QR code. And equally, as we develop the second part of our partnership, where we're integrating Saira Hospitality curriculum into Mews University, we'll be looking for some customers to test that concept out. So thank you all, enjoy your lunch, and see you afterwards. Thanks, guys. Thank you.